I'm live. This is like magic, right? You press a button that says go live, and in seconds you go live. And it's really weird when you do this. And I always find this when I do live broadcasts. You've got no idea if anybody's going to listen or whether you're just going to talk to yourself for a while or whatever. So I'm just going to start, and I'll start talking. Now, this session, this live session is, hey, Steve, this live session is all about my first book. My first book is called The Ultimate Explorer's Guide for Kids. Now, the way it came about was kind of weird, right? Now, I've loosely based my career for many years around the education community, both connecting with schools around the world and combating barriers to education. So helping to provide education for kids that don't currently have access to it. And as part of that, I've done quite a lot of work with what's called the Skype in the Classroom program. Now, Skype in the Classroom was part, or is part of Microsoft's CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility program, to improve education and education provision the world over. So through that, they launched Skype in the Classroom. Now, Skype in the Classroom provides a really easy way for schools all around the globe to be able to connect and engage with each other. But importantly, it also gives a way for teachers to be able to bring external speakers from all around the world, from any discipline, into the classroom to talk about their particular subject of expertise with children. Now, at the height of this, I was speaking with around 4,500 children a month from all over the world. And my aim was to bring the world to life in classrooms everywhere. So I would talk about the expeditions that I've done. I would talk about the expeditions that I was about to do. And sometimes wherever technology platforms allowed, I would actually connect with schools live from an expedition or adventure somewhere. So I've done some cool stuff, like I've spoken to schools in Canada, Ireland, France, and South Africa, whilst I was actually sat on the edge of a jungle in Kenya. That was pretty cool. You know, the kids could see the trees. They could ask me to point the camera where they wanted to see different things. There's a whole troop of monkeys appeared in a tree behind me. It was a pretty awesome experience for me, as well as for the kind of the kids and the teachers involved. And it just helped to kind of bring things together in the classroom. Now, off the back of that Skype in the Classroom relationship, Microsoft asked me to speak about my experience and my work at the education show at Birmingham NEC. So off I trundled to NEC to take the stage and talk about bringing the world to life in classrooms everywhere and the benefits of using Skype in the classroom to enhance education. So I did my bit on stage, and it was quite comfortable. I felt good about it. I left the stage and I walked around this huge kind of event. There's a conference, there are speakers, there are trade stands, and kind of lots of things there, from teacher training to resources to stationery, you name it. And you can find companies there trying to kind of promote what they sell, and that's the aim of the game, I guess. Now, as I was walking around, I was walking down one particular aisle, and I kind of made eye contact with a lady working on this stand that was covered in books. And she stepped forward and shook my hand, and she said, "Hi, I won't give her name, but she said, introduce yourself. And I work for this publishers. Are you a teacher?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm not a teacher." So we had a conversation, and the conversation literally lasted 4 or 5 minutes at most. And towards the end of the conversation, she said, "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I have, but I've got no idea how to make it happen. I know what I want, but I don't know how to make it happen." So she said, "Give me your number." So I gave her my number, and I left, and that was the end of it. I didn't hear anything at all. 10 months or 11 months later, I was sat at home, and I had a phone call on my mobile number, and it was this lady. "Hi, it's me. We met at the education show." "Yeah, I can remember. The book we talked about, do you think we could get the first bit through in the next 2 weeks?" "What? 2 weeks? I've got no idea how to make this happen. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do here." And she said, "That's okay. We'll tell you exactly what we need. And then, you just make it happen in the next 2 weeks for the first bit. And then the rest of it can happen 3 or 4 months after that." So, right, okay. So having never done anything like this before, I was asked to create a chapter or an overview of a chapter or 2 chapters within 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. Now, at that point, I've been doing lots of research into the way that children learn and accelerated learning techniques. to try and take those lessons into remote areas where education provision is not as good as it could be. So I had a bit of a handle on the latest research from around the globe on how children learn. And that's what I wanted to use as the backbone, the spine for the creation of this book. There's no point having a book out there that does nothing. It had to engage the people that read it and empower them, give them knowledge and empower them to get off and do things on their own. So I made it very clear that that's what I wanted. The publishers are great. We talked it through. I talked about what my thoughts were. They kind of brought that back to reality about what was possible. They paired me with the most awesome editor, Laura, and she was absolutely superb. And Laura really, she brought together all of my expectations and what was actually possible, the realities of kind of writing or creating this book. And she made it happen around me. So I provided all the material. Now, when I say I provided material, I'm a pencil and paper freak, right? So I wrote the entire book on A4 lined and plain pads with a pencil. I've actually got the pencil here on my desk somewhere, a mechanical pencil. So I did the entire book like that. And when she wanted information, I would photograph my text, my very crude illustrations, and I would send that across to her with page layouts and notes on what color different sections should be, and then kind of footnotes on why it had to be like that and how that connected with the way that children learn and assimilate information and what excites kids, what gets them going. And she kind of brought all that. I'm going to refer to notes now because I'm going to go off on a tangent. But she brought all of that together and kind of made it happen. It was really pretty cool. Now, where did we go? One of the phrases that came up often from the publisher to everybody that worked in the publishing house was, "We've never worked with an author quite like you before," because I was so finicky about what I wanted, and because I guess largely because everything that I did was kind of, I would back it up with a bit of kind of email stuff, but most of my book was text. So I've got a whole folder, or 2 or 3 folders full of information, all the original stuff, all the original drawings and working out and everything. So that's in my drawer. We're gonna do that. Now, it took next to no time. Once I'd got all the information over to them, and we'd gone through kind of how I wanted it to look, what they said was possible, what they knew would sell. When we pulled all of those different things together, the book came together quite quickly. And before I knew it, it was only a few months, I had a phone call from the publishers saying, "Can I pop down to the London office and have a look at the book?" And as you can imagine, my first ever book and my first view of my first book, I was petrified and excited all at the same time. I was going to have my first view of this book that was going into print. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know whether it was going to sell 10 copies or 100 copies. The success was quite phenomenal. But so I went down to the office and I sat there, and they walked in, and Laura, the editor, walked in, and some of the design people, and they said, "Right, this hopefully is what you imagined." And they put the book before me on the desk, and I sat in silence, and they took a few photographs as I kind of looked through it and sort of scratched my head and thought, "Wow, I did this. This is happening. This is real. It's a tangible thing here." And it was the most amazing feeling. That was the first ever copy, and I've got it. I've got it kind of loosely in a frame. The first ever copy of that book is on my wall here, and signed as the first ever copy. And nobody's ever getting it. It's mine. I will leave it to somebody when I no longer require the book. Not that I really require it. It's just nice to look at. You know what I mean? When it's time for me to pass on, I'll pass it on. Now that kind of very quickly cascaded into loads of opportunities from that single book. I was already doing quite a lot of work speaking about motivational speaking, that kind of thing, talking about education. I would talk about goals and objectives and resilience and all that kind of stuff. But suddenly I was being asked if I would talk about the book and create this presentation for a mixed audience of children that would read the book and the adults, the parents that would buy the book, So I had to come up with a presentation that addressed what the adults wanted to know about me and what the kids wanted to know, not so much about me, but about adventure and doing stuff and getting dirty and mucky and all that kind of stuff. So the first phone call I had for the first booking off the back of this was the Edinburgh International Book Festival, which is part of Edinburgh Fringe. It's huge. I was gobsmacked to be going to the Edinburgh Book Festival. So they phoned up, they booked me into the book festival, and off I trundled. So got up there the night before and had a bit of dinner and stuff with an old mate. Went into went to the book festival itself, and you get an author's yurt, right? It's all a bit kind of, yurt. You sit in a yurt with all these kind of Moroccan style decor. So I got there, I get into the yurt, and I'm sat there having a cup of coffee, and I looked across, and there was Louis de Bernier, was sat literally right next to me, and he offered me sugar, and it was kind of, I just literally 3 or 4 weeks before that, I'd spent 30 quid on a ticket to go and hear Louis de Bernier speak about his latest book, because I'm a bit of a fan. The Captain Corelli's Mandolin. Louis de Bernier wrote that book, and there's a section in that book which holds special meaning to me. It's about love is a temporary madness. My best friend's father, who was an exceptionally good friend, read that passage at my best friend's wedding, and he would practice on me for months and months and months until he got it right. And then he delivered the passage at my best friend's wedding, and then unfortunately a year or 2 years later, Tom himself got cancer and died. And at his funeral, his daughter-in-law Rachel read the exact same piece, and I tell you, I couldn't. I'm fighting back the tears now. It was awful. Anyway, so I sat there with Louis de Bernier and other amazing stars from the literary world, and it was really good fun. I got on stage and kind of did my bit on stage. It was awesome, really, really cool fun. And then you come off stage and you go into this other room where people come in and they buy your book, and then they come forward to get you to sign it. And I looked up, and the queue was huge. It doubled back and snaked. And I couldn't believe that they were all there for me to sign my book, which was just amazing. But everyone that came up, I didn't just want to sign it and give it away, because that means nothing, So every time a young person came forward, I wanted to know their name, where they were from, what they liked about being outdoors, what they were going to do with the book. And I told them, get this book, muddy and mucky. Don't keep it pristine. Don't keep it on the shelf. Get it out with you. Use it, abuse it, make it your own. And several of them over the years that followed did actually find me on social media. I'm ExplorerJust everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And they sent me pictures of them actually using the book outdoors, which is pretty awesome. But then on the way back from the Edinburgh Book Festival, on that first one, I got to the airport to fly home. And I'm sat in the airport, and I've just picked up a book for myself to read by Bernard Cornwell. So I'm sat there reading Viking stuff. So I'm sat there reading this book, and I looked up across the airport, and I saw this kind of gaggle of kids looking at me and smiling. And then their father, I guess there was father and mother, looked up, and they smiled too. And then he nodded, and suddenly this group of girls came running over and said, "Oh, we were in your talk. Were you at the book festival?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." They said, "Oh, yeah, we were in there. Can you sign our book for us?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, of course I can." So off they trundled back to mum and dad, got book, came back with book, handed it to me. I looked up at them with the book in my hand, and I said, "But this isn't my book." They said, "No, we only had £10 to spend for our pocket money, so we bought Jacqueline Wilson's book, but can you sign it?" So I signed a copy of Jacqueline Wilson's book. They didn't get to her talk. They got to my talk, but they didn't buy my book. They bought hers. It's all fair in love and war, isn't it? And then from there, I went on and did loads of other book festivals. So I did Greenwich and Oxford and Bath and where else did I go? I've made a kind of list here in this country. And then I got to speak around the world. So I was doing book festivals in Qatar, in Saudi, in France, the Netherlands, Norway, Germany, South Africa. And it was a pretty awesome experience to be doing all of that kind of stuff. the book started to sell well, and not as I thought it would sell in kind of ones and twos. Right? The book was picked up by education authorities and departments and literacy trusts all around the world because it was very quickly published in 20-something languages and available in 36 or 37 countries, whatever. So it was being sold internationally, and it was being bought by education authorities, not in ones, but in their tens and hundreds and thousands. So it started to sell exceptionally well all around the world, and off the back of that increased the demand for me to do more schools work through Skype in the classroom. Now, all of the work that I did with schools was entirely for free. So all of that Skype in the classroom stuff, that was my time. So as you can imagine, talking to 4,500 kids, that's like 30 hours work. It was quite involved. That one of the reasons that education authorities picked up on this book was for the literacy element, because of the way that I created it using research based on how children learn. It made it very easy to introduce it as a literacy tool. To go back to my notes for a minute. So I lost track then, sorry. So yeah, I started reading my own notes too much. So I started working with literacy trusts here in the UK. I did quite a lot of work. I did a lot of in-person visits and school visits on behalf of the literacy trusts here in the UK, and book giveaways and all that kind of thing. And similarly with literacy trusts in the US, in Canada, and Australia and South Africa. And like I said before, I knew it was published in God knows how many different languages and God knows how many different countries. And the weirdest thing was when I carried on doing my Skype in the classroom stuff, and I was talking to a school in China, and they all popped up with a copy of my book in Chinese, and I was blown away. So weird to see something that I'd written suddenly being printed in not just any foreign language, but Chinese. That was kind of weird. And I've got a copy here on the shelf of the same book printed in French and in Spanish. So it's pretty cool and very humbling, I must say. To think that it's out there, and people have recognised me off the back of that book and the work that's gone around that book. It's kind of weird. I'm not famous at all, and I don't pretend to be. I don't allude to be. But it's pretty weird when you kind of go places and people will recognise you based on that book. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So questions that have come off of social media. So I put out a couple of calls on social media for anybody that's got any questions about this book that I've written or anything else really. So I've got a few. Did I ever think I'd write a kids book? Before I met the publishers, QED, Quarto Kids, I kind of wanted to, but I didn't think I had the talent to be able to create a kids book. It takes quite a high degree of intelligence. I thought, and I'm mistaken because I did it and I don't consider myself intelligent, but to come up with something that kids not only enjoy, but it helps the learning process. So I didn't think I was talented enough. I didn't think I was intelligent enough. I mean, talented, you've got people like Chris Mould, I met Chris at the following year. I did, following year, 2 years later, did the Edinburgh Book Festival again with another book. And Chris is an author illustrator, and his work is amazing. And the way that he brings together the kind of the storylines and the illustrations, all his illustrations, to entertain and encourage kids and help their learning is fantastic. I'll drop a link in the description. So no, I didn't think I'd do that. It was just fortuitous that I was doing lots of research in other areas of education, and that helped me to create the book, and that kind of helped to create the success of the book, I guess. Will I write another book? I did another book very shortly after this. I think it was about 2 years after this one came out. I wrote a second book, The Ultimate Mapping Guide for Kids. And that came about because in all of these presentations I was doing, I would be asked, what's the one common skill for an adventurer and an explorer? And I thought, well, what is the one common skill? And the one common skill, I guess, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, is to be able to navigate. And I'm a bit of a map freak, and a bit of a kind of, I like all forms of navigation tools, and I'm a bit of an anorak with it, I guess, a bit of a collector of knowledge and kit. So I wrote the Ultimate Mapping Guide for Kids, which takes a tiered approach to navigation. So it starts off with the question, what is a map? And then it builds up from there to draw a map where you've got draw a map of your bedroom or your house, where everything's orientated, and then go from there to overlaying with scale and with grid references and contours. What's a contour? How do you make your own contour map? So I did loads of stuff like that. And I've spoken too much about my second book, but there you go, it's out there, The Ultimate Mapping Guide for Kids. Will I write any more books? Yes, I had another one that was due to come out last year, but unfortunately that was all shelved because of COVID. The whole get outside and play with your friends when the world is saying, don't get outside, don't meet people. It was the wrong time entirely. So that was scrapped. And it might be some time before the market is right for that book to come through again. It takes a while for things to change. In addition to that, I'm also writing a book about my dogs, or my life with my dogs, and I'm writing another one about resilience, resilient mindset, and another one that you probably don't want to know about anyway. It's a comedy book. Do I still think it's important to buy books for kids, and how do I suggest getting kids to read them? Yes, it's definitely still important to buy books for kids. We've got all of this stuff on the internet, but one of the things that's happened, one of the kind of research things I was looking at when I created my book, is the attention span, because of the way that kids learn. The way that we all learn and we all interact now, because of the internet and things on our phone, and happens so quickly. Twitter, Instagram, whatever, it's all sort of scroll through. The attention span has dropped dramatically. So when you actually have a book you've got to read, that helps to maintain your attention span, to increase that attention, that excitement for a particular subject. I like paper books because I think you can go back to it time and time again. It doesn't change once it's there, once it's in print, once you've got it on your shelf. Every time you pick it up, it's going to be the same, and you can draw in it, you can write in it, you can carry it with you. It doesn't need batteries, it doesn't need electric, it's fun. And that's what my books were about. Take them out, them dirty, carry them with you. You don't need to plug them in, just have fun. They even came with a little free compass on the top. I wouldn't necessarily want to use it if I had to navigate properly, but it gave you the idea. How do you get kids to read them? I think a lot of that comes down to parents predominantly. If parents invested the time in sitting and reading with their children, then maybe it would develop a lifelong habit. I'm not saying people don't. I'm not saying people should, or no. What am I saying? No, I'm not saying all people don't, but maybe if more people spent more time sitting and reading with their kids, the more children, more young people would develop a lifelong reading habit. Trying not to be politically incorrect there. And what's the most memorable moment in giving presentations to kids? Now, I've done loads of this over the years. So I've been doing kids presentations for 10, 11, 12 years, maybe more. And before that, I dabbled with other stuff that put me before kids. When I say kids, I'm currently talking about like the younger, 8 to 12, 14. I've spoken to young people up to 16. I've spoken to colleges, and I've lectured at kind of university, undergrad and postgrad level about different stuff. So I'm talking about kids, 8 to 14, 8 to 12, 8 to 14, 8 to 12 probably. So I did this science fair, and I spoke to 1,500 children from the ages of, I think it was 8 to 12, over a 3-day period. So 1,500, and it was just a constant kind of hamster wheel of another class came through and I'd present, another class came through and I'd present. And I was talking about animal adaptations and how we use animal adaptations to on expeditions with regards to clothing layers and equipment. So I've done this presentation. It lasts about 35 minutes, and any questions, to fill in the last 10 minutes, you get all kinds of stuff, from how do you go to the toilet in the Arctic, to what do you eat, to, do you miss your mum and dad? That's quite a common question. Do you miss your mum and dad? I'm 48, Anyway, and by the way, if mum and dad are watching, of course I miss you lots. But this girl piped up, and she put her hand up, and I pointed and said, "Yeah, what would you like?" She said, "Can you sing a song by Robbie Williams?" No, I can't sing a song by Robbie. I'm sorry, I'm not a singer, and I'm not Robbie Williams. At which point, a kind of bottom lip came out, and she started to cry, and everybody was looking at me, and I didn't know what to do. So I started to sing a song by Robbie Williams. It was the only one that I knew the words of, and let's just say it was not the most appropriate song. So so I finished it very quickly, and that was the end of that. So writing a book has been awesome. It was an amazing experience to put it together. It was life-changing to see what I'd created touch so many lives around the world, and life-changing and humbling to think that it's helped so many people. And that I just can't get my head around the numbers on that. I really can't. I won't go into book sales, but they've been strong. And I've not bought. Actually, I bought one copy because I bumped into a young lad that recognised me from school. And anyway, long story short, I went into a bookshop, picked up a copy of my book, and gave it to him outside. It was there with his mother. He just lost his father. So I bought one. Not one of these guys that's kind of bought 4,000 or 5,000 copies of my own book to make it look like the numbers are good. And they're still kind of sat in my on a pallet in my flat in London or whatever. Not that I've got a flat in London. I now live in Snowdonia. But it's been good. Anyway, I'm now in danger of waffling. So I'll knock it on the head. I've been talking for just over 27 minutes. If you're here, great, thanks. If you're not here but you're watching later, great, thanks. And if you're not watching at all, who cares? I'm not going to say thanks because you're not here. You don't hear it. I'm going to go. Whatever you're doing, be good, be brilliant, be awesome. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, then please do get in touch. Drop me a comment here or get in touch through any of my social media channels or through my website. Let's have a conversation and make good things happen. I'm done. Good night.